Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and in this video we're breaking down Rebel Moon Part 1.
It's a new age for the universe.
Titled A Child of Fire, there's a hell of a lot to talk about, with there not only being a sequel coming, but also an extended version. Yep, they're doing another Snyder cut, but I kind of feel like this is a marketing ploy purely by the studio. Has it backfired? Well, the reviews aren't looking good, and honestly, it is kind of difficult to review myself. Knowing that a longer and potentially better version that sorts out the issues in this is dropping soon makes it weird to talk about from a critical point of view. Snyder said his version is a, and I quote, completely different movie, and that he wanted the R-rated cut to be his. It's kind of weird knowing this isn't what Zack intended, and there's already been a bit of damage control. It's been said it's all tied up in what Netflix want to release first, but yeah, they have a streaming service and are doing a longer one in a few months. So personally, I see them looking at the Snyder Cut movement and how much the demand dominated social media. To me, they may be hoping it makes everyone double dip, with rumours of the other cut keeping interest in the film. I mean, director's cuts in general, they've been a big marketing thing for decades, with it making people buy alternate versions of films so they can see the true vision. If you've got the Alien box set, then you might remember Ridley Scott actually opens it up by introducing his new cut, but basically saying he still thinks the theatrical one is the best version. The director's cut's actually shorter and contains less shots, and Scott said it was done purely to sell the box set. So cynical spoilers, I'll forever remain, but we will get into it as we discuss the movie. Anyway, that's my longest intro ever, and heavy spoilers ahead from this point out. Please smash the thumbs up button if you enjoy it, and don't forget to subscribe for videos like this every day. With out of the way, huge thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into Rebel Moon.
When I found you in the wreckage of that ship, I considered leaving you.
I was afraid you could bring trouble to us.
What do you think they want?
Everything.
Now, as with all sci-fi epics, there's a lot of lore and things to unpack. Inspired by elements of Dune and Star Wars, Snyder's crafted a galactic spanning tale. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, we learn of the Motherworld, which had a royal bloodline that was so lustful for power it consumed all the planet's resources. Sending its army into space, they attempted to conquer all. However, this need for power caused the subjects to rise up. Both the king and queen were killed, along with their daughter, but we'll talk about how that might not be the case later on. Now, in our world, when it comes to rebellion and a coronation, people just stand outside holding banners and stuff, but here, it's worse when a heavy spoilers video gets a limited ad symbol, and he has to upload the same crap video twice. Not really as good as Anthony Hopkins doing it, is it? But either way, there were whispers of revolution on the Outer Worlds, and a senator named Belarius sees power in the vacuum. Now a regent, he set out to renew the Empire's strength through his loyalist follower, Admiral Atticus Noble. His one mission is to crush the rebels. Rebels spelled M-O-O-N.
He said it! He said it!
It's a niche reference that, but if you read The Stand, I hope you appreciate it. Anyway, this is where we meet Cora, a farm girl on the planet Velt. Velt means uncultivated land, but I feel like the word may be a nod to the Watchmen. In that, Ozymandias' real name was Adrian Veidt, and Snyder of course directed the film adaptation. It's a bit of a reach, but we learn throughout the film that Cora was once part of the Imperium, but that she crash-landed on the planet and has been lying low ever since. With Noble's and Noble quest out and the stars raging on, we see as this eventually takes him to Velt. Noble is currently hunting a group known as Clan Bloodaxe, and he demands supplies in order to continue the mission. The cheeky people of Velt live on a fertile and rich planet, but they're like, mate, it's proper crap this, drier than my nan's Stoofaloofagus, you know what I'm saying?
What?
Beating the village's leader, Father Sindri, to death, Noble tells Gunnar that he has 10 weeks to have supplies ready. Gunnar started believing that they could be partners, and he dropped Sindri in it by bragging about how much they had. Gunnar saw it as an opportunity, but all they care about is conquest and power. Cora just wants to keep her cover and lie low, but Noble leaves some soldiers behind to make sure there's no funny business. Amongst this is a droid who comes to be known as Jimmy, and he comes from a long line of robotic knights. Ever since their king was killed, they refuse to fight, but when it comes to Sam, he starts to intervene. This might be a clue at who Sam is, but he tells us of the king's and queen's daughter, who was known as a redeemer that was seen as a person who could save the Motherworld. Known as Issa, their Issa resemblance to villager Sam, which leads into Jimmy spouting off about her. Again, can't do it as well as Hopkins, but we discover that Cora was once her bodyguard. After her world was taken by the Imperium, she was raised by Belisarius and turned into a warrior. She never knew why he spared her life, but she did go to pull the trigger on him, so perhaps he saw strength. I think we will learn more about him in part 2, and I have a theory about what that is. Nakura says that he saw something in her eyes, and my guess is that they had a similar childhood. We know the Imperium conquered many worlds, and I feel like he would have been in a similar position. We also learn that the soldiers were encouraged to love so that they had an attachment during the fury of war. Belisarius is without one when we see him, and I think that like Cora, he probably lost his. Maybe in her, he saw something else, and a child that he could raise as the person he was in love with didn't survive long enough to have one with him. Does that make sense? Is that a theory time? I don't know, but I kind of feel like that's where we're going. However, there's also the fact that she's the scar giver, which could tie in with Issa. Issa was seen as the future for the world, and a way they'd lost due to all their war. Issa was able to give life, and this power was thought to be something that could regenerate the mother world. Cora, being a young girl as well, could have been an opposite to her, and a way to bring death across the entire galaxy. We know that part 2 has the subtitle Scargiver, so it's likely going to be what the entire film focuses on. We learn she is the most wanted fugitive in the entire galaxy, and potentially she's the assassin that killed the royals. There's talk about how her death came from giving charity to an off-worlder, which in many ways fits in with that. Perhaps her father got his surrogate daughter to carry it out, and that was the reason that he became regent. Again, theories, but she says she felt guilt over the assassination, and that's the reason that she fled. In the end, she sees some soldiers assaulting Sam, and smashes them like they're the like button. Jimmy comes in and stands up to his masters, leaving just a soldier Aris who stood up to them too. At this point, they head out to the Providence in order to do a 7th Samurai. Making their own band of warriors, they start to assemble a cast of characters that can help out in the fight against Noble. Now, I feel like this is where you can really see a lot of the movie was cut down, as we have the pacing kind of all over the place. Some characters come in and are taken out as fast as they arrive, and you really wonder if they were even needed at all. Obviously, I'm guessing these would get more room in the extended cut, and it would feel a bit less breakneck. As always, Snyder uses slow-mo and action scenes, and this does give them a sense of his own unique style. I don't think he could have cut them down and had the movie still look as good, however, I think this might add into what people are criticising the film for. Again, I don't think he could cut them, but when you have to cut the other stuff, it then leads to some plot issues. I kinda compare it to Batman v Superman, in which I thought the extended cut sorted all the issues out. I really enjoy that version, but the theatrical cut got rid of a lot of the cohesive moments that helped to fill in some of the questions that you might have. That was obviously all studio mandated, and I feel like this is history repeating itself. There's a lot of characters, but Snyder's not being given the runtime to do them justice, so it was either cut them out completely or cut down the character development. And that's for the side ones, but I genuinely think Cora gets a lot, and there was enough here to keep me invested. Speaking of history repeating itself, they then go to what's basically Rebel Moon's Mos Eisley Cantina, which is where they're seeking info about a character named Titus. Played by Damon Hunzu, he's a former Imperium general who, just like Cora, is rebelling against the rulers. Now the Cantina is Kaid, played by Charlie Hunnam, who's basically your Han Solo of Rebel Moon. Also, a bit of trivia, did you know that Han Solo is the Han Solo of Han Solo, a Solo story? Anyway, there's also Tarek, who can bond with animals, and my favourite character, which is Nemesis. Though her weapons are getting compared to lightsabers, I think they do enough with them to distance her, and she's probably the standout character design-wise. Leaning heavily with the samurai influences, the way she's shot just leaps off the screen. I think it has to be said that, as usual, that's one of Snyder's greatest strengths, and watching her slice up Peter Parker's wet dream woman is a good standalone scene. The score is also in a really similar vein to Batman v Superman, so hey, if you like that, you're gonna like this too. At points, I even thought it might be that, but it's such an amazing soundtrack, I didn't mind it at all. In the end, a meeting is brought together with the clan Blood Axe, which is headed up by Darian and Devra. Darian and his half of the clan, they agree to help, whereas Devra sees it as just being a loss. Anyway, Kai ends up betraying the rebels after he says that he has to drop off some cargo.
It's a trap!
We discover that Kai's home was ravaged by the Imperium, and he's seen firsthand how deadly they are. Captured, Noble riffs off the famous band of rebels and realizes that Cora is the Scargiver. This is when Gunner is ordered to execute Cora, but instead he frees her, like actually frees her, not the "I will free you" and then they kill them, which leads to a massive battle. They're rebels, they've gone rogue, call Tom Cruise, they've bloody gone rogue. Now the battle isn't without its losses either, as Darian gets killed during it. Thus I think his sister's gonna step up to the mark and avenge her brother come part 2. Cora also goes toe-to-toe with Noble, and he seems to fall to his death. However, we later see Noble's body's recovered, and he's surrounded by the Red Priests that we've seen throughout the film. I don't know if this is a nod to Dungeons and Dragons, but they're doing something that looks like it could be necromancy. Either way, it leads to him newly being in conference with Belisarius, who demands Cora is returned to him. He states that he wants to publicly execute her, and if Noble fails, that he'll be the one who gets it. Atticus then wakes up with his orders clear, and though he's been given another chance at life, we don't know how long that will be, and hey, man's on borrowed time too. Makes me wonder if Issa's still alive, and this is how the machine manages to bring him back. Guy is definitely dead, but this, like her powers, it has resurrection. Now as for Cora and Co, they head to Val, which is where we catch Jimmy now rocking antlers. The war is coming, and they need to get ready, as the sequels are going to be dropping in April. They say it would have been a beautiful place to die, it would have mate, but we're not bloody gonna. Now there's a teaser on Netflix that pops off immediately after, and though I can't get a copy of it, I can bloody describe it. It has the villagers training and getting ready for a fight, and we also see the generals past at the battle playing out. Darian shows up in it too, but I feel like this moment with a prior one are purely flashbacks. They also give the idea that Sam's skilled as well, and again, I do start to suspect if she's actually Issa. Jimmy did say that she shared a resemblance, and maybe Cora fled with her and faked her death. She was her bodyguard, and she's of course carrying the bloodline, and I wonder if she's hiding and will come back and lead in the future. Jimmy also, he's really shaken himself out of his apathy, so perhaps seeing her, he just drew the connections. That would make sense about why he turned against his masters, as he was trying to protect Sam, who could potentially be Issa. Issa, big theory time. But yeah, that's how I feel, and leave your comments below as I'd love to hear them. Now if you enjoy the content we make and want to support us, then please consider joining the Spoiler Side squad by clicking the join button. For just 99 pence and 99 cents a month, you'll get early access to our podcast every week and also all the classic movie breakdowns that we drop on the channel. We've got Die Hard on there right now, so yeah, just click that and you'll get to see it early. So now, if you love movies as much as we do as well and want to save some money, then we're also giving 10% off at our partners Arrow Video. They do a ton of cult classics on 4K, and by using the code Heavy Spoilers, you get 10% off. The savings are amazing. Anyway, as for my thoughts on the movie, it's kinda difficult to get into them because, as I said, I know a longer cut's coming. Director's cuts again are really weird because it's like the studio admitting that they meddled in the entire thing. However, there's lots of reasons why they're created in general, but more times than not, they're done to achieve the artistic vision of the director, with them releasing years and sometimes even decades down the line. Blade Runner is a great example, and Ridley Scott was forced to have narration put into the film because the studio worried that audiences would be lost. They also forced Scott to use B-roll from The Shining at the end, and this was in order to give the movie a happy ending. Even when the director's cut of this was lauded about, it wasn't even really a director's cut, as someone else edited it and Scott just gave notes. So years later, they did the final cut, which Scott got to oversee. However, director's cuts can be dangerous, and that's because people change. For example, George Lucas has changed his mind on whether Han shot first like 95 times now, and Spielberg also got addicted to tinkering with his movies as he spent a ton of money on E.T. This was in order to alter the guns and change them to walkie-talkies, but he ended up turning them back because he changed his mind again. Tweaks like this can become dangerous, and to me, we're kind of in a death of author situation where once it's in audience's hands, it sort of belongs to them. In the end, a lot of changes can often end up angering fans, and there's tons of videos running about the Star Wars special editions. However, you also have fans getting angry at the studio for holding back the director and forcing them to put something out in the first place that they didn't want to release. Now why I'm saying all of this is so I can explain why I just don't get why Netflix have done what they've done. Little mistakes left in stuff, I think it adds to the charm of a movie, and not every single thing needs to be tweaked until it's perfect. We could even get to a point where fan movements constantly demand other versions of films to a point that it becomes a bigger talking point than what else the studio is trying to release. I think that's something we've seen happen with Snyder before, and though I get called a Snyder shill a lot, I think that's because I enjoy pretty much all his movies. Now Netflix own their streaming service and they can put anything on it as long as they want. They're not really held back by movie theaters, who only have a certain amount of time to show movies a day and a certain amount of screens. Thus, I can't help but feel like this is just a marketing tactic by them to try and capture some of the fandom and attention. Snyder to me is up there with being someone who I associate with director's cut, and that isn't just because of what happened with Justice League. Watchmen, right? I bought the DVD, then bought the director's cut, then bought the Blu-ray, and then the director's cut Blu-ray. Then I bought the Ultimate Edition Blu-ray, and then I bought the 4K, and then the 4K Ultimate Edition, and then the 4K color-corrected Ultimate Edition. Clearly chumps like me will keep buying as long as we're promised better versions of the films we like, but there's not really many I can think of where I went back to the theatrical once a director's cut's released. I think that's how I feel about Rebel Moon as well, and a lot of the characters are introduced in out the movie before we get a chance to know them. Some plot threads at points can feel like they get way too much attention, while other threads are cut down to the point they don't feel developed at all. Now, do I think these issues will be fixed in the extended version? Yes, I actually do, which is why it's so annoying, because I genuinely feel like the pieces are there. There's really good stuff scattered throughout, but in the back of my mind when I was watching this, and we had something cut down, I thought, oh well, that's probably going to be in the director's cut. Now visually, Snyder's on his A game as usual, and it's crazy how much better this looks than most movies out there. Everything about it pops, and most of the film you could pause, screenshot it, and use that as a postcard. The production design is excellent too, and these characters feel like they've been ripped right out of a gritty comic book. In the end, it's annoying because I can see the potential, but judging off this cut, I feel the film falls short. The movie's also getting lambasted on Rotten Tomatoes, which is frustrating because we know what else is being withheld to make fans double dip. To me though, what I view as a marketing move's backfired a bit because this is supposed to be launching a new universe. I genuinely think there'll be a chunk of the audience that don't go back to this at all, even with the director's cut eventually being released. When you got sequels banking on it as well, it's like they've purposely started off on the wrong foot, which is weird. And if you haven't seen the film yet, and for whatever reason are just watching this video, then my advice is to wait. Just wait and watch the R-rated version when that comes out. Don't let Netflix know they can do this sort of thing with Part 2, and please Netflix, just release the film that you should have done the first time. Let us judge that instead of having to wait it out and watch lesser ones, because I think all the bad PR around this has soured a lot of the discourse. If people switch off on this new universe, then Netflix kind of have themselves to blame, and I suspect many people might not want to go back. So yeah, this is a weird one to review, and though I think there are parts to like, it's clearly been a hatchet job. Now there's also potential that director's cut will have issues too, and what it could lead to is people dunking on it for there being two bad versions of what should be the same movie. So yeah, I think that's weird, but just going off this vision, I think the faults held it back and what we get's a compromised film. Now there has been enough here to keep me invested, and I will be back to talk about that extended cut. If you want to see that, then please subscribe and make sure you leave your thoughts on the film and the situation behind it. Please drop a like on the video. Also, I know it's weird when you're reviewing a film and you're sort of talking about the history of director's cuts in general, but in the case of this one, I just feel like I had to bring it up. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot to talk about, but if you've enjoyed this, then please hit the like button. If you want something else to watch, we've got a video on screen right now, so definitely head over there right after this. Out of the way, huge thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.